much, everyone. Good morning. This is the earliest I have left my house to attend a shooting, a meeting, or a get-together. A lot of friends here, family. So first of all, thank you to India Today Conclave for inviting me again, in spite of my bad behavior every time I come here. Thank you, Koyal, and thank you, Kali. What a wonderful name. Thank you, Arun Saab, for having me over here. And as so wonderfully pointed out by Koyal, that yes, the 2-year-old knows me, and the aunties know me. It's my age group which ignores me. But I'm working on it, Koyal, I'm working on it. Okay. I don't know what to say. I could talk about how films will be made, films should be made, but there's a piece that I have in my mind because I think Indian cinema is getting global and I have a little take on it. So I've written it down, and I don't know if the speech is good or not, but I have the iPad too, so eat your heart out. So I'm going to read from that. Here goes. I hope it makes some sense to someone. Magic is a view of life. I see it everywhere. I see it in flowers, in clouds, in the shafts of light that filter through branches, in my lover's beautiful eyes reflected by the moonlight, and in my children's words. I see magic in what I learn from my hurt, and magic in how pain transforms happiness, and happiness transforms pain. I see life as magic. I see all this because I make movies. You have to have the eyes to see this magic, the eyes to see it and the heart to feel it. Movies are like a pair of eyes letting you see the world in a particular way. They're not magical because they concoct a dream world. They're magical because they look at the world as if it might be a dream. And that's what movies do. They translate the world into a series of images, just like dreams do. The transposition of these images creates a feeling of life. In a good movie, this feeling is centered on emotion, and it taps directly into the emotion of the one watching it. It allows them momentarily to view a different reality from their own. It does this primarily through feeling. In a world that moves rapidly towards the construction of defenses, a world that increasingly uses technology to mute the feeling of life and create distances between the actual physical connection between people, this ability to awaken the feeling of life is unique to cinema, I think. It is unique because it utilizes many senses, not just one like reading might. Sight, sound, 3D, and perhaps in the future even touch, all work together to create feeling and emotion. This is magic. But in a strangely Buddhist way, if I may add, it is also truth. The play between reality and the surreal in movies is in fact an acutely accurate reflection of life and its truth. That is one take, a poetic take I have on cinema and films. Then there is the other one, according to Frank Capra. Film, Frank Capra said, is one of the 3 universal languages, the other 2 being music and mathematics. Indian films, I dare to add, in this modern decade, are all 3 languages rolled into one. We have the music, the images, and the corporates have brought in the mathematics. It's all right to be poetic about cinema, see the world through the eyes of a painter, etc. But the real truth of this decade is that the business of cinema has started to play a big role in the industry. So big that we would be foolish to deny its importance and stick to our artistic pursuits alone. When the business has become important, I guess the market needs to be looked at. Gone are the times that Indian films could not look towards the West and rest of the world as their marketplace. I would like to offer today some points as to how we can compete and compete well in this arena by using the know-how of the Western world in this field. I want to rewind a bit the truths or the near truths which are being spouted around, which is India and its development. I see the upwardly mobile Sensex in India, and I get the idea that we are a thriving nation. I hear speeches of the Honorable Finance Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, talking about the Formula 1 speed of our GDP growth, and I believe we are one of the leading economies in the world. When I hear all these truths, then I have a theory about the growing nations and developed nations, which I have developed or thought of. Actors normally are not meant to be smart, but this is my smart theory. So please give it little heed. In a developing nation, when the 3 necessities of life are fulfilled, are on their way to fulfillment, as in our country, the focus shifts to the 4th most important desire of all human beings. The first 3 being, of course, roti, kapra, or makan, that is food, housing, and clothing. Obviously, we still have a long way to go before all are satisfied on these 3 counts, but desires are organic and not systematic. And we in India have moved on towards the 4th desire already, I think. That is entertainment. The oldest modern form of entertainment in India is, of course, films. So we are now on the threshold of a huge burst in the business of film entertainment. And I think sports entertainment will soon follow. What makes entertainment even more in focus around the world is that when an economy of a country starts to move positively, the regular people at large start to notice the entertainment format of that country because it is more readily available. Now more so with internet and television abounding. Entertainment, I believe, is the packaging of a growing country, the aspect you notice and talk about the most. It happened some years back about Korean films, all the scary ones, before that the Chinese, earlier than that Japanese, and the English and Hollywood films have been in focus for years now, as we all well know. So the world is looking at India. The Indian economy has done the marketing for Bollywood, and it's a great time and place to be in at this instant. That is the playing field we are now at. Mumbai to Melrose, the road is shrinking. I would actually like to say Bombay to Beverly Hills, but that kind of alliteration is not allowed to Muslim actors in Mumbai. So I'll not create new controversies. So, Mumbai to Melrose, the road is shrinking. That's true, and we can see that all around us. Warner Brothers, Sony, and Disney are in India making Hindi and regional films. UTV is making Hollywood films. Studio 18 and Eros are venturing into the tie-ups with Hollywood studios. And Big Picture, Reliance, showed us an absolutely kick-ass presentation, which actually made us aware that they're buying the whole Hollywood, as only Reliance can do when they venture into any business. In all these wonderful happenings around the world of entertainment, there is this one word which I keep hearing from Indian filmmakers, to which I have an aversion, and I would like to try and remove it from the vocabulary of Indian films. I would just like to make a mention of that and move on to more positive things about international cinema and us. That one word or term that disturbs me is that all Indian filmmakers keep chasing an elusive dream called the crossover film. There is an action film, there's a romantic film, a comedic film, a dramatic film, a bad film, a completely vulgar and cheap film, but I have never understood what a crossover film is. I think it is nothing at all. There is nothing known as a crossover film. Because if there was one, Hollywood, our smarter cousins, would have already started making crossover films made in America and taken over the Indian film market. They have for years tried to bring their films and run them as they do successfully all over the world, but in India, they have failed. They quickly realized that Indian viewer is used to a certain kind of cinema, which is unique to India. Its sentimentality, the songs, the drama, and of course, Mommy Dear, the mother. All of what makes Bollywood cannot be replicated by Hollywood. So they quickly decided to release non-dialogue-centric films and dub them in Indian languages, films which Indians don't mind watching if the hero and heroine are not dancing. So we throng to see dinosaurs who don't dance and Navi girls who don't sing and actually speak in Bhojpuri and Marathi instead. We need to take this cue from our smarter cousins, Hollywood, and stop being stubborn about selling a dream of a 3-hour-long, interval-laden cinematic offering and hope for it to cross over. Let me say it plainly, Bollywood guys, this ship ain't crossing over the 7 seas. And I would just like to mention this little saying I read by Alfred Hitchcock, that the first criteria for a good film is that the length of the film should be directly related to the endurance of the human bladder. And I'm not surprised, with a name like Hitchcock, you would be referring to areas like this. I won't be invited here again, right? Okay, so instead of going forward with a desire to cross over, we should think of taking over. Actually, we should be thinking of globalizing Bollywood films, because globalize we must. And to do that, we need to have a give-and-take relationship with the Western cinema, especially Hollywood. It is essential. I believe we need to welcome Western films with open arms amidst us. Let them enjoy the benefits of this growing Indian television and film market, make alliances, and allow them to make films here because we are cheap, not in the sense of being cheap, but compared to the expensive filmmaking trends that they have set up in Hollywood. The investments will not be huge by their standards, so they will be happy because, in all honesty, nothing talks better to Hollywood than money. All of us who want to go there and make films in the Hollywood style, I'm sure those studios will reciprocate, and we will soon have our own Anglis from India working in Hollywood. In return, instead of just looking at investments in our companies and films, let us ask them for 3 essential skills. I say skills because Bollywood, Hindi films, Indian films, I do feel is lagging in 3 very important aspects of filmmaking. And I say this out of 20 years of experience of someone who really, really wants our cinema to be loved by the coming generations, to be loved by the rest of the world. The first amongst them is, just like we have been able to guard our film viewers from watching any other kind of films except Indian films in large numbers, Hollywood has trained the whole world in enjoying film watching in a certain format or dress code. We need to understand that format and not adhere to our own stubborn way of narratives. I don't mean the intrinsic story of our films, but the actual screenplay writing technique of Bollywood films. The sooner Indian filmmakers realize that screenplay writing is not an art form, but a science, the faster our films will globalize. Hollywood can exchange that know-how with us, and that's what we should take back in return, not monies. Mr. Will Smith met me once, and he told me that he does 2 films a year. One that is artistic for him as an actor, and the second one with a bigger superstar than him as a co-star. When I asked him who would that be, because I thought I would do the same, but I had a problem. I could not find a bigger superstar than me in India. Stop it. When I asked him who would that be, he said visual effects, VFX. I feel so odd that on one hand, we have the biggest software developing industries of the world happening in our cities and in our country, and somehow we are so lagging behind in its usage in India. We have the means to buy the machines, but we don't have trained mechanics to run them, or they leave the country and go away. That is the big investment we are looking for from Hollywood. We need to develop people who can make us our own cheaper, better, faster softwares for filmmaking and have a special branch of trained visual effects teams and talent here. As it is cheaper to make films here. Let us ask our Hollywood counterparts to help us develop this industry. If we really want to go global, this is an important criteria. Look at the success of Hollywood films in terms of blockbusters. If not all, then at least a majority of them have superstars bigger than Mr. Will Smith in them. This applies not only to the visual effects or special effects, but to filmmaking technology in general. Let's stop being proud of the fact that we removed wires in Harry Potter, which made him fly. You know, in movies, when we fly, we attach to wires, and then they're erased from the screen. And it's the least important work of visual effects. All the companies here are doing that work, and we're very proud. We've done the special effects for Harry Potter. I think instead we have to make our own Harry Potter, or whatever we want to call him, because a younger audience deserves it and desires it, to say the least. And if we don't do it soon, the younger audience of this quickly turning young India will soon stop watching our own domestic product. They now have access to world entertainment at their fingertips. Like the circus tradition of yore, our films may be at a risk of becoming a thing of past very soon domestically. I took my kids to the Natural History Museum, and they quipped to their friends, "Our dad took us to a dead animal circus." You know, that's the kind of youth that is going to take over this young India. Or just actors sound stupid. No, I think that's the kind of youth that will take over this country. We have to be ready for them. The third most important aspect we need to adapt from the Western film is the discipline and organization with which they do their business. This organization already exists in other businesses in India, but is woefully lacking in the business of films. This needs to filter down to our own distribution system of films based on their models. Also, the most essential aspect that we need to learn is the science of marketing the films. This is a science which makes entertainment into an event. If our industry needs to thrive domestically also, we need to figure out and learn ways of selling our dreams to the largest number of people in the shortest span of time. It is the age of the information superhighway with very small spans of attention. Also on a side, I would also like to mention that the government needs to recognize the Indian film industry as an industry, but that's a whole discussion, so I won't get into that. We'll come next year and talk about the government role in Indian film industry. Yeah? I prepared an intellectual paper on that one too, yeah. And speak in my baritone voice. But going ahead, having done this kind of exchange of ideas and learning with our Western friends, only then it makes sense to demand the usage of their wide distribution network around the world. They will also be more committed and excited about taking our films global in partnership with us. Otherwise, we will only remain a novelty in film festival circuits, a thing to be admired and patronized over a few glasses of red wine. If we just stop at utilizing monetary investments from these studios, we will be letting them off cheap. And that, as we all know, we Indians will never let off anyone cheap. The knowledge that the Western cinema machinery can bring to Bollywood is much more essential than the investment it is already doing here. The time has come to have a symbiotic relationship where we both can feed off the knowledge that we have instead of just the monies. the economics will follow, because then Bollywood can have a global audience watching our films and the Indians watching their films in larger numbers. And to sum up, in all this, I don't ever wish to suggest that we ourselves let go of what we know best. Learning Western-style screenplay and technology is not about losing the intrinsic quality of our stories. We have to maintain our own cinematic individuality. Our strength has always been that we are a self-sufficient filmmaking nation. Also one of the few nations besides United States of America which has a star system in the film industry. And it's not a bad thing. Any nation which does not have a strong star system dies as a commercially viable filmmaking country. Our regional films in South Indian languages, Bhojpuri, Marathi, Mr. Rajnikant, lately are enough to run the economy of entertainment from within and the widespread of the classical diaspora market right now. But if we don't innovate in terms of technology, the science of marketing and writing, this market will dwindle. That is, we don't need Hollywood investment as much as we need their knowledge. Our films are like us, dramatic, funny, oversensitive, but never apologetic. The only thing I wish many Indians would have in them is actually intervals. Our unique cinema encompasses music and song in a way that it is not a musical, but a drama musical, a genre of its own. And let me again say that a romantic film, a dramatic film, an action film, and a drama musical film is acceptable and watchable, but there is no genre like a crossover film. We are barking up the wrong tree. So instead, let's form an alliance with the wonderful Western friends to help us nurture a potentially different storytelling format, the drama musical. Take it around the world. Only, and if only our content has feet, even if it's dressed up in a Western garb, it will succeed. But never should our core content compromise our syntax for global business, as that would kill our domestic market and the romance of Indian storytelling. Classically, all those economies which have technology and science as their core drive have become the forerunners of the world. But technology and science are now so easily available that they have been commoditized. What will make the economic value of products rise is the power of the right side of the brain: creativity, imagination, empathy, and aesthetics. I believe the Indian stories have that in abundance. We should just embrace the science of it all as soon as possible. Mr. John Wayne said, "Tomorrow is the most important thing in life. It comes into us at midnight very clean. It's perfect when it arrives and puts itself in our hands. It hopes we have learned something from yesterday." I believe that Indian cinema is the tomorrow of our times. We just need to learn from the very experienced and bountiful yesterday of Western cinema. And the world of cinema will belong to our very talented, homegrown young filmmakers. With that belief, I quote from one of my own movies, because I'm a self-centered superstar, कि दुनिया में और दुनिया को हमारी पिक्चर देखना भी बाकी है मेरे दोस्त, क्योंकि बड़ी बड़ी पिक्चरें अभी बाकी हैं. Thank you very much.